Hi, Doug Pelton from The Frame Up. Today we're going to talk about headlamps. There's a lot of variants and there's different ways to restore the headlamps to bring them up to snuff to put on your car. Let's take a look. The first headlamp I want to talk about is really the TD, and this is also appropriate for the TC EXU. It's a 7-inch. The Lucas number is S700. The rim is basically the same as the fog lamp, where you've got a retainer screw in the top with a bracket that holds the rim in place, just so you can identify that different from the TC buckets. The next bucket is the pre-war L140 Lucas bucket. This often gets confused with the TC bucket, which is the M140, and the easiest way to identify the difference is the base of the bucket has a slot that's parallel with the rim versus the TC bucket, which is a slot perpendicular to the rim. Now the rim is different also in that it has a bracket at the bottom, and the way this gets installed is that you put the rim on the bucket, pull it down into place. We've got some used items here just so we can manhandle them, and then the inside there's a bracket that's threaded. We're going to place that in. The L part goes back towards the stud itself, and then you have a screw that goes through the wing and into the threaded area, and you tighten this up to hold the rim in place. We really want to spend most of our time on the TC headlamp. It's 8-inch M140 Lucas bucket, and to bring these back to original condition, the easiest way to do that is to take and drill out the 5 rivets, and then the whole base assembly comes apart, and then you can clean and refurbish all of the items. The bucket itself is chrome, so you want to send that off to the chrome shop, and while that's being re-chromed, then you refurbish the base unit. One item that's important to note on the headlamps for the TC is that there's 2 variants on the base unit. One has the base internal to the bucket, and the other has the base external to the bucket. This is the proper and the original base unit configuration for the TC. The internal base is a 1950s later version, and it's often seen on the TC, but if you want to be accurate, this would be what you would prefer. Okay, once you get the chrome shell back from the chrome shop and you're ready to assemble, you've got all your pieces laid out. This is the assembly order. The first thing is you put the cupped washer onto the stud, and you want to make sure you do this in the correct orientation, not up, but the cupped washer in this orientation, and then you're going to drop this into the base plate, and then you have the stud locating tab that goes into position to keep the stud from rotating when you tighten the nut, and you're going to install a couple rivets. We have those rivets to provide for the reassembly. Then you put it into you have your bucket. You're going to have the base plate underneath, and then inside you're going to put the inner base plate, and then you're going to fasten everything together with 5 threaded rivets, and I'll show you in a second. Don't forget the little copper tab that goes under the rivet, which is the loop for the grounding wire. Everything is held in place by threaded rivets. They have the same head as the original rivets, but the difference is the rivets are threaded, so you just put them through the base plate and then put the washer and the nut on and tighten it down so you don't have to use a hammer to peen it over. It's real easy to reassemble, and you don't nick your paint or chip the chrome. Next item is the reflector, and on the back of the reflector we have 6 slots, and for orientation you want to have your socket for the bulb. Your bulb adapter goes in, and if you will note, there's a tab on the bulb holder itself, and that goes in the center slot, and that's for the reason of having the dual filament bulbs oriented for high beam, low beam, and that slides into that slot. When you go to adjust your focal length, you can pull this in and out to adjust the focal length of the beams when you're setting them up on your car. Now, before you put that in, you have a round clip that goes on here. Might be a little too tight. Goes on there, and then put that back in for orientation. As part of that, okay, one of the primary questions we always get on headlamps is how do you assemble the headlamp when it's all finished and you've got the rubber to put in, what goes where. So just to walk through that briefly, first thing you want to make sure you've got the King of the Road medallion finalized. That's in there. Your base is all finalized. You've got the car wired into the back of the reflector, which we showed previously. And then you want to orient the reflector on the headlamp using a locator tab. It's kind of a protrusion here, and that fits into the slot on the headlamp itself. So you're going to put this into the slot, and then notice my thumb position here. You should really handle these with a pair of cotton gloves. Anytime you have newly silvered, or just keep your fingers off the reflectors themselves, because your body oils react with the silver, and you can see down here years past someone's put their fingers on here and they leave a tarnish. Once you get this oriented in position, take the rubber. Now it's got what I refer to as a puffy side. It's got a puffy side and then a little thin side. The puffy side is going to go towards the front of the car, and with your reflector in place against the shell, you're going to lay the puffy side around the perimeter of the reflector, and then on the back side, that little narrow tab goes into the groove of the headlamp shell itself. And it's probably best to have 2 people do this. You just work it around, making sure that little thin rubber section is in the groove, and 2 hands to stretch this, and it holds it in place finally. One thing I want to highlight is the difference in headlamp lenses and the associated rims. The early TC had the flat lens, and then the later TC had the domed lens. The dome lens had a rim that was a little more rounded, which fit the contour of the lens itself, whereas the early TC had a square or a flatter lens, and the profile is going to be a little more square on the rim itself. One way you can identify the early and late rim is to take an inside measurement. This one's just shy of 7.5 inches. That's the later version. The early version is just a little shy of 7.25. So there's actually a 1/4 inch difference between the idea of the early and the late. So if you try to put an early lens in a late rim, it's going to rattle around, and that's not going to work. The other thing is, how do you install the lens within the rim itself? Each lens is held in place by 4 W clips shaped as a W, and these are very simple to install. We're going to hook one side, put it in, and then bend the other side in place. To take them out, it's in reverse. You just pull this down, release the tension, and take it out. Okay, the very last step is installing the rim on the headlamp. So you're finished with the reflectors in place, the rubber is in place, and now it's time to put the rim on. However, you should have installed the T-retainer and the spring previous to doing all that, because that's enclosed and you have no access to it. So we're going to kind of take a step backwards and show you how to install that right now. The easiest way is to put the retainer up through the slot in the bottom. You've got that protruding. And then take the mustache spring, is what I call it, and just put it in place vertically, and then push down on the center section to catch the tab. And now it's in position and preloaded, ready to work for you. The next thought is, you've got a tab that centers on the top of the bucket. That's a locating tab, and you should also have a tab on your rim at the base unit, and you can see the hole. That's where the T retainer clip is going to go into when it's finally in position. So the final step is to use the centering tab at the top, and then push the bottom down into place, and then you're going to, with your fingers, pull the T-clip up and into the hole, and that gives you your final locking position to hold the entire assembly together. That's it for